Welcome back to the Qt Developer. Today we're going to take a look at some candlestick charting. Candlestick charting, that's actually built right into Qt. A way to use a model of candlestick data and a view to populate that view with the data that we're loading from our text file. So we'll start off with this, something that's fairly straightforward, and some documentation, and then go ahead and elaborate upon that maybe later in future videos where there are more complicated charts. But this is a way to become more familiar with something and get something up and running fairly without as much pain and discomfort. So let's take a look. So here's the data. In the data, I'm going to have the timestamp. I'm going to have the open, the high, the low, and the close. Total of 5 elements. Now I have a number sign here, so it skips this, and I can just have a comment. So I have 2 comments, one for historical data, and then a comment specifying what one of my columns is going to be. Now I use a delimiter of a space between each item. So now let's actually go take a look at the file here. So I'm going to create a candlestick reader that inherits from Qt text string because I'm going to have to read in the text file. Now that text file is from data.txt. And if I look at my main, I'm going to have to include all the necessary libraries from Qt charts, from the axis to the candlestick series to the chart view. All of these things I'm going to need. So now I'd like to actually go in and start putting in a bit of the definitions. So let's see. So what am I going to need exactly? I'm really only going to need 2 things. I'm going to need a way to read the file. So I'm going to need to be able to read the file. The file that I'm reading, I need to pass in an I/O device. The next thing I'm going to need to be able to do is I'm going to need to be able to create a candlestick set for the data that I want to pass into that view. So I'll need both of these. Now if I go ahead and add my implementations, here we are. So now let's go ahead and actually start, let me start trying to fill this out. So for the read file, I really only need to do one thing. And the one thing that I need to do is I need to take the Qt text stream and I need to pass it my device. Now inside of my candlestick, I need to do a little bit more. So I need to create a Q string, which would be a line, and that'll equal to reading the line. Next thing I'll need to do is I'm going to need to actually do that check. Now remember, we were looking at this before. I want to check to see if it has a number sign. So in my check, I'm going to say line dot starts with number sign. I'm also going to need to check if it's empty. And if either one of those is true, run for the hills. The next thing I'm going to need to do is I want to go ahead and split all of these strings, each one of these strings, so there are 5 of them. I want to split them up based on my delimiter, which is the space. And I can do that pretty easily with Qt by passing the line split with my space, and I'll skip the empty parts. Now the next thing I want to be able to do is I want to be able to check to see what the count is. So if my string list, if the string list count is not equal to 5, then I'll also return I broke it. Okay, need my equal. There, wonderful. And let's make that look a little nicer. All right, the next thing, I need to actually take all of my data here, the timestamp, the open, the high, low, close, and I need to store them all into a variable. So there's my variables. Now, if you're wondering why QReal, what is QReal? Let's go take a look. QReal is nothing other than a type definition for double. But QReal brings up some neat little features that we can use later on if we need to. So now that I have all of my data in their own little variables, I now want to go ahead and populate the Q candle set. And here's my Q candle set that I'll go ahead and populate. Give a little more room so it's easy to see. So here's my candle set. And I'll go ahead and set the open, the low, and the close. Now let's take a look at the Q candle set. Here's the Q candle set, which derives from a Q object. And here are our properties. And notified. Look at all these notifies. Now the brush and the pen. The brush will be used for the body color. The pen can be used for the outline color. And you can see you can set the high, the low, the close, etc. We also have Q signals for when it's clicked, hovered, pressed. Just a whole slew of things that we can use. They'll be really neat, quite helpful. So now that I have this filled in, well, this requires a candlestick set to be returned. So I'll go ahead and return my candlestick set. Now that's out of the way. I now have my candlestick set. So that's all taken care of. Now let's go ahead and go to my main. Now in my main, I'm going to want to actually create a new candlestick series. So let's go ahead and do that. But before I do that, I need to include it. So I need to include that candlestick reader. So right now, I want to make a new candlestick series. And let's call it, it's always the difficult part, trying to name it. Let's call it Candle. Now let's call it something else. Stock series. No, I don't like that. Let's make it coins. There, gonna get paid. And that's equal to new Q candlestick series. Beautiful. Now the coin series. Let's go ahead and give it a name. Set name, and I'll give it coins. There. I then want to go ahead and set the increasing color and the decreasing color of the candle. So if the candle is going up, we'll make it a color. Candles are going down, make another color. So we'll keep it, let's see, coin series. That increasing color, and I want to make it a Q color. I'll make it green. And then I want to go ahead and make the decreasing color, and I'll make that red. Alright, so now that I have my colors, I now need to go ahead and actually read from the file. So Q file, and let's call it coins data. And I want to go ahead and pass it data. There. Now I have my data. But now I need to check the data. So I need to say if the coins data, and I'm going to go ahead and open it, and I also need a QIO device, and it's only going to be text. So if that doesn't exist, go ahead and exit. That way we can try to avoid crashing. Unlike Microsoft, crashing is bad. When things freeze in Microsoft, that's a good sign. I know that's bad, it's terrible. But it's kind of fun. Alright, so now Now I need to make a string list for my categories. So now I'll say Q string list and category. So now I have a category for my string list. I now need to go ahead and take my candlestick reader. So my candlestick data reader, and I need to pass it the coin's data. Now what I can do is I can actually kind of go through the data. And I'll do that with a while loop. And I'll say while data reader. So while it's not at the end, go ahead and start building. So my candlestick set, create a set, and that's going to equal to the data reader. And I want to go ahead and read the candlestick set. I then need to check that set. So if my coin series, I want to go to append the set. I then want to go ahead and take my categories and extract them with the QDate time. And I'll use the epoch time. And I want to take the set and I'll set the timestamp. Why is this not working? I forgot a parenthesis. I'll set it to string. And I want to go ahead and since this is a daily chart, I'll set it to daily. And so that will cover this part. Clean that up a little bit. Now the next thing I need to do is, well, I need to create the actual chart. So this is what I'm going to display everything in. So I'll go ahead and create the chart. And we'll just make it a new Q chart. I then want to go ahead and take my chart. And this is where we add the series. And the series is the coins series that I just created. I can then go ahead and set a title. And let's say, set my title to coins data. Or coins daily chart. There. Next thing, let's go ahead and give it a little animation. And the animation options, we'll set it to QChart Series Animations. Beautiful. Next thing I need to do is, well, I need to set the axis of the chart and create default axis. Now I need to set the bar category axis. So what happens in the X axis and what happens in the Y axis. And with this, I can set the categories for both the X and the Y. There we go. Next thing I need to do is I need to now set the Y-axis. So let's go ahead and do that. Then I'll go ahead and set a legend. Now the legend, I can set the visibility of it. I can also set the alignment. So I can align it in different areas. Top, bottom, left, right, so forth. Then I'll go ahead and create a new chart view and set the anti-aliasing. The anti-aliasing is going to make it nice and smooth. I then want to actually get the window, so I'll create a new Q main window. Give a little more room here. So next step, Q main window, and I'll say window. Be real creative. Now the window, I want to set the central widget. And the central widget that I'm going to set is going to be the chart view. And then I'll go ahead and resize it so it's a 600 by 600 pixels. Oops. Need that semicolon. Whoop. Resize. There it is. Say 600 by 600. Then I go ahead and show the window. And there it is. So now, let's try to build and see how many errors there are. Looks like there's an error right here. I think I have a few extra parentheses. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now I'll go ahead and run it. Let's see what it looks like. Here we go. It's pretty neat. Here's our chart. Here's our candles based on that data. So I hope this was interesting. Hope you learned a few things. And next time we'll come back and actually take the data that we did from the other experiment. We'll try to blend the two together. But there's a lot of really neat things you can do with Qt. A lot of built-in functionality too. And this chart is one of them. So if you just want to plot your charts, plot your candlesticks, kind of see what's going on. It's a pretty nifty way to fool around and play with the data. See where it takes you. Well, thank you for watching. Take care and happy coding.